off. And with the number one pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the 2023 AJL Mock Draft 2.0 will be Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. Bryce Young, instead of CJ Stroud, going number one overall in this draft for me. We've heard in the reports that Bryce Young is the pick. And if I had to think of a reason why, he's very talented. He does have more of that, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen type of thing to work off script and makes things happen. A little better than CJ Stroud, in my opinion. He is smaller, but knowing that Bryce Young won the Heisman, knowing that Bryce Young did not have 4 first-round wide receivers to throw to like CJ Stroud did, seems like he can make a little more happen out of nothing, and it's definitely going to be a good bit of nothing until more free agency moves happen and the draft happens for the Panthers. So Bryce Young, number one, which will mean CJ Stroud, number 2 overall. I've seen some drafts where the Texans are not even taking a quarterback, which is very, very confusing to me. Davis Mills is not it, unless for some reason you think he is, which he doesn't show anything on tape to be a franchise quarterback. So CJ Stroud at number 2 overall, my personal favorite in the NFL draft. Now, here's where my draft gets crazy. I wanted to load this one up with trades. I used a different format, but nonetheless, this was the one and only trade I pulled off here. I had the Commanders jumping up to 3, trading their first and second of this year and first and second of next year for the number 3 overall pick with the Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals will now move back to the 16th pick. We'll get at them later on. And with the craziest move of the NFL draft, Anthony Richardson is the 3rd quarterback off the board, ahead of Will Levis, ahead of a Hendon Hooker, ahead of whoever else you think should have been taken ahead of him. Eric Bieniemy is now the offensive coordinator with the Washington Commanders. Ron Rivera is more than likely going to be on the way out of there soon. Bieniemy is going to step in as the head coach, and we know that Washington's offense has a lot of nice pieces. You bring in a guy like Anthony Richardson, who you can mentor behind Sam Howell, maybe let him get his feet wet a little bit. It is going to be a risky move. But the main reason for this move, one, I wanted to shake up the NFL draft because it's a mock draft and we really never know what's going to happen. Nothing is necessarily a lock as much as we want to think it is. Eric Bieniemy is going to want Anthony Richardson with the prototype, with as being young as he is. Ron Rivera as well can be a player's coach, can mentor guys up. Wild trade, I know. The only one that's happened in this draft, again, we're going to have more mock drafts coming, probably about 4 or 5 total. I hear my dog scratching on the door. Y'all give me 1 second. Come on. Yep, it's the mock draft. Let's go. Yes. Hang it. Yes. What you doing? All right, y'all. We're back. She always, I'm pretty sure I've told y'all this before, she has to be in here for every show. My little brother's out of town. She sometimes likes to go and hang in his room for a little bit, but she was like, nope, Dad, I'm still here. I want to make sure. I'm so OCD. Give me a second. I want to reposition myself. Boom, boom. I think we're good. Look at the camera. The camera refocusing. All right. Awesome. Wait a second. Oh, I'm so OCD. Can y'all tell? I gotta make sure everything is prim and proper and good to go. All right. So Anthony Richardson, number 3 overall to the Commanders. Wild trade, I know, no doubt. Now we go to the number 4 overall pick. Will be Will Levis. And I want to say he was the number 4 overall pick to the Texans, to the Colts in my last draft. This could be one, though, where the Colts could trade back. They are one of the teams that I think maybe or not could trade back. Maybe they want to jump up even more because they don't want to settle for a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson. Would the Texans maybe budget to? Maybe they have their eyes on a Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Nolan Smith. You don't really know. But Will Levis fitting the prototype again for Frank Reich at number 4 overall to the Colts. Number 5, the best edge rusher, in my opinion, in the draft over Jalen Carter, which a lot of people think is the best player in the draft. I think Will Anderson is better. I think I have a stronger argument that Will Anderson is a better player than Jalen Carter and potentially the best player in the draft, really maybe behind Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I mean, Will Anderson tears it up. It would be great for Seattle. I believe they did need some trench work and just some young players on that defensive line. So we're going to have Will Anderson at number 5 overall to the Seattle Seahawks, not the Colts again. Wait, never mind. Yeah, stay tuned, man. Stay tuned. A lot of these mock drafts coming, and I got a whole another 20-something picks out of us here. At number 6, just like they took Aiden Hutchinson last year, I took a big look at the Lions stats for them defensively. They had a horrible passing defense. They had one of the worst defenses in the league. It was bad passing, bad rushing, bad for the points. They take Aiden Hutchinson last year, who had a pretty solid rookie year. He was worth the pick. They get Jalen Carter here at the number 6 overall pick to put with Aiden Hutchinson. I believe I'm also going to have them taking another defensive line in a little. So overall, we number 1, CJ Stroud. Number 2, the Commanders trade up to number 3 to grab Anthony Richardson. They want to mold him. They know he's a very raw player, but nonetheless, Bieniemy and Rivera see something. They know Sam Howell is not it. Number 4, Will Levis. He fits the regime perfectly. Number 5, Will Anderson, edge rusher to the Seahawks. Number 6, Jalen Carter. And I guess I'm just here to destroy the Raiders franchise because I'm here making yet another silly pick for them. But I could see this happening. They're going to take Hendon Hooker, quarterback out of Tennessee, with the number 7 overall pick. So that is going to give us 5 quarterbacks in the top 7 draft picks. So far, Hendon Hooker will be with the Las Vegas Raiders. They know Jimmy G's not going to be the answer to carry. That's what Derek Carr did, as I mentioned before. Jimmy G, I think it could look pretty ugly with the Raiders, and maybe they could even be picking higher next year. Everyone's going to roast me. I know some fans agree that they're going to botch it. They're like, oh, Lord, maybe they take an O-lineman. They're going to take, because they do need a quarterback. And again, I think the Raiders would be another team to trade up because they know Jimmy G's not going to be it. Jarrett Stidham, I believe, also left as well. He's the backup with the Broncos. So Hendon Hooker, number 7, they're going to take a chance on him. And again, Hendon Hooker coming off an ACL, but he was very, very solid. I believe if Hendon Hooker does not get injured, he beats Alabama clearly in that game. If Hendon Hooker does not get injured, I believe Hendon Hooker is realistically picked here with no craziness involved and maybe even picked in the top 5. Maybe we're looking at 5 straight quarterbacks off the board in the top 5. At number 8, the Falcons will complete that defensive line rebuild. They just bring in Jeff Okudah today. It would be crazy to see them draft Nolan Smith, an amazing edge rusher. I'm a lot higher on him than most people in this draft. I love his speed. His size could be better. Some people are saying maybe he's kind of like a linebacker in a way because he's so efficient. I think running a sub, was it a sub 4.4? Or was it a sub like 4.5? Somewhere in like the mid 4.4s. Nolan Smith flying, though, out of Georgia, going to stay right in his backyard and get drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Wesley, you think the Titans are taking an offensive tackle? Well, you'll just have to wait and see, sir. On to the next set of picks here. Excuse me. Looks like you were right, Wesley. The number 9 overall pick to the Chicago Bears. If there's one thing that's a lock in this draft, the Chicago Bears have to take an offensive lineman to protect Justin Fields. Ryan Poles has spent some money well. Justin Fields, I love as a quarterback, not looking to move off of him yet. So they take Paris Johnson, get him real comfortable with an Ohio State guy. I was also mentioning maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba at number 9 way earlier before mock draft started when they traded back. If they traded back to 9, give him a comfortable Ohio State wide receiver. So Paris Johnson at number 9 to the Chicago Bears. Got to protect Justin Fields. Number 10, the Philadelphia Eagles making a splash move at the number 10 overall pick, taking one of the best players in this draft in Christian Gonzalez off the board. They lose CJ Gardner-Johnson. They're luckily able to keep Bradbury and Slay. Got a little tedious there with Slay, but again, when I had them taking Bijan Robinson in my first overall draft, down at the 30 position, I believe, I thought that was reasonable. It's a splash play, one of the best players in the draft. You just lose Miles Sanders. I think with you just losing a safety in CJ Gardner-Johnson, you bring in Christian Gonzalez, young guy, blazing speed, best corner in the draft. I don't think anyone would complain if that were to happen. Ooh, Bruns goes, I think Hendon Hooker is going to be more successful than Anthony Richardson. Early on, yes, possibly. The ACL, of course, is really, really hindering him, and I hate to see that a lot. But when you do have Anthony Richardson and his athletic ability, sorry, I was reading a comment, his athletic ability clearly outweighs Hendon Hooker's, but he's so inaccurate, literally. Out of 45 FBS quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson was the 45th most accurate quarterback in the country. Absolutely horrible. He's going to have to get that cleaned up. But if Hendon Hooker did have a better career than AR-15, that's something we'll have to keep on tabs, Bruns. I'd like to keep that going, see how far these guys go. Number 11, Wesley, you were right. Broderick Jones, tackle out of Georgia. Taylor Lewan is a free agent. Wesley, tell me how you feel about that in the comments too, really quick. Can't believe that Taylor Lewan is actually a free agent, and they're going to take Broderick Jones to supplement SEC lineman out of Georgia. We know Georgia back-to-back national championship, protecting Stetson Bennett, helping those running backs perform well, helping that Georgia offense being the foundation. You're never going to go wrong with a pick like Broderick Jones. Number 12, edge rusher Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech to the Houston Texans. You can never go wrong with a great edge rusher. The Texans need an edge rusher. I don't believe they have any real true defensive presence. Now, I want to say I can't remember before the fans jump at me. I can't remember if it was offensive or defensive line, but one of them was a lot better than I thought. But being here at number 12, they're going to have CJ Stroud, so they're going to go ahead and take Tyree Wilson at number 12 edge rusher. Number 13, Peter Skoronski, who I originally had going number 9 overall to to the Chicago Bears, is now going to be a New York Jet at number 13. This is where I originally had Broderick Jones going as well, but Peter Skoronski will be a New York Jet at number 13, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Some say this is the best lineman in the draft. You really can't go wrong with Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, Peter Skoronski, again, out of Northwestern. Shout out my guy, Guru's Film Room, who does NFL content. He says you get your guys out of the Big Ten and you get your offensive linemen out of the Big Ten, you are not going to go wrong, which I hope they're in the Big Ten. I believe Northwestern's a Big Ten. Someone might just destroy me if they're not. All right, Patriots at number 14, Devon Witherspoon, second best corner in this draft. I believe I put Devon Witherspoon at number 2. Yeah, okay, cool. Did. Devon Witherspoon at Illinois, being next to Sidney Brown, that safety out of Illinois as well. But the Patriots going to take their best player available as they're looking at it right here. No moves for them in this NFL draft. Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois, defensive back to the Patriots. Myles Murphy, number 15, a really nice pick. One of the better edge rushers at Clemson. I'm lower on him in some of my drafts. Some people have him great. Some people have him going top 10, maybe even top 8, which I think is a little steep. I wouldn't take a Will Anderson. Of course, I would not take a Jalen Carter or a Nolan Smith even over Myles Murphy, but coming out of Clemson, can't knock him for what he did. He's clearly in these draft boards at the positions that he's at for a reason, and Green Bay is going to enjoy an edge rusher here. Another edge rusher going right behind him. This is where Arizona falls back in the NFL draft. They take the first and second of this year from Washington, the first and second of next year from Washington as well. Lucas Van Ness goes number 16, edge rusher out of Iowa. Again, a little lower on him in my drafts. He is a good edge rusher, no question. And the Cardinals are going to need a nice edge rusher. And again, best player available, falling back to number 16. So the NFL draft shaking out with Lucas Van Ness at number 16. Before we hit our first break of the show, Bryce Young 1, CJ Stroud 2, Anthony Richardson 3 in a trade with the Commanders jump up to number 3. The Cardinals fall back to number 16. Will Levis, number 4 to the Colts. Will Anderson, number 5 to the Seahawks. Jalen Carter, number 6 to the Lions. Hendon Hooker, crazy pick, number 7 to the Raiders. Nolan Smith staying in his backyard, going to the Falcons at number 8. The Falcons complete that defensive line rebuild and just the overall pushing all the chips into the middle of the table for that Falcons defense. God, can y'all slow down on getting better in the division, because you're going to make it to where these games are now competitive, but that'll be another conversation. We're talking Falcons defense later here. Number 9, Paris Johnson Jr., O-lineman out of Ohio State, will go to the Chicago Bears. Bears have no choice but to take an offensive lineman there. Christian Gonzalez, number 10 to the Eagles. Broderick Jones, number 11 to the Titans. Tyree Wilson, number 12 to the Texans. Peter Skoronski, number 13 to the Jets. Devon Witherspoon, number 14 to the Patriots. Myles Murphy, 15th to the Packers. And Lucas Van Ness, 16th overall to the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, this is the mock draft 2.0. Pick 17 through 31 coming up now. I think that's the Steelers at the top, number 17. I have a logo or a little time over. Yes, it is. Steelers at number 17 are going to take Joey Porter Jr. They are going to supplement that Cameron Sutton loss to the Lions. The Lions, of course, when they when they sent Jeff Okudah out to the Falcons, really could have been a byproduct of Cameron Sutton coming in from the Steelers. So Joey Porter Jr., they take a replacement there instead of an O-line like I did in the last draft. Kalijah Cansey, instead of going to the Patriots, he falls a little further. Lions going defensive line again because they could not stop the run last year. So you're going to have Aiden Hutchinson, Kalijah Cansey, and Jalen Carter sitting on that defensive line with Alex Anzalone behind. At the linebacker position, miss him for the New Orleans Saints. CJ Gardner-Johnson at the safety position. And then they've got I feel like they had a better corner for some reason. I don't know. I'm probably thinking of Okuda, who just got out of there. But Kalijah Cansey at number 18. Here's a big pick. Bijan Robinson at number 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know we're going to be wondering, why are we going to take Baker Mayfield to hand off the football to Bijan Robinson, one of the better players and one of the best players in this NFL draft? I personally believe Tampa still has a Super Bowl team. And you're going to see in one of my mock drafts, I'm going to have Tampa jumping up, taking a quarterback. They still have Mike Evans. They still have Chris Godwin. And I know those guys can get hurt. They don't really have a running back presence, though. So bringing in Bijan Robinson absolutely helps. I want to say, is it Rashad Penny that is the running back right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They still have a great secondary. They still have Shaq Barrett. They still have, I'm drawing a name on some of the pass rushers that they have, but we know the players that are on that defensive side of the ball for the Bucs, especially on the defensive line. So Bijan Robinson, they just want to supplement that offense more. I personally believe they are still a Super Bowl roster. And number 20, the Seattle Seahawks will take Jackson Smith and Jigba, the number 1 wide receiver and the first wide receiver off the board at 20. After everybody tumbles in this draft in an odd way, JSN to the Seahawks at 20, keeping Geno Smith in that good quarterback conversation, having DK Metcalf. I think some people, and I've seen in a lot of mocks, people are saying that the Seahawks have to take a wide receiver, that their biggest need is wide receiver. Seahawks fans, let me know what y'all think as you're watching this draft. I know Tyler Lockett is very inconsistent. Not only, I mean, of course, fantasy is a direct correlation to stats, but I've seen where Tyler Lockett will get 75% of his stats in 5 or 6 games. And it's like, wow, he can really fall off and show up for a game or two and then disappear for a month or a month and a half. So maybe they want to supplement that more, but it's going to be a ripple effect because 2 more receivers straight will come off the board. Zay Flowers at number 21 to the Chargers because they need a wide receiver. Another thing that I feel like is a lock, if there are, I guess, a few things that are locks in this draft, first and second picks are going to be quarterbacks. The Bears have to draft an offensive lineman at number 9, and I don't know where the Chargers go other than a wide receiver at 21 because Mike Williams is great, but he's not a wide receiver 1. He's looking to take over that role and maybe has, according to some people in the last few years, because Keenan Allen has not been healthy. Keenan Allen not being healthy is a reason that I believe Zay Flowers should go number 21 overall. Maybe they should have taken Jordan Addison. And even with OBJ going to the Ravens a couple days ago, Jordan Addison will go 22nd overall out of USC, a guy who had a kind of a shaky combine, but ended up playing out well. Jordan Addison, number 22 overall to the Baltimore Ravens. OBJ does feel nice coming in, I guess. Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Shamar Bridges is a great player. Needs to get some more playing time, though, and that will happen as his career goes on, of course. So Jordan Addison, a stud here for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if it's Brian Breeze, Brise, whatever the case is. Number 23 overall to the Minnesota Vikings. Nice edge rusher. Maybe should have went a little higher. Now I see Kalijah Cansey way up there, but the way the draft falls with some of the positions, maybe you could see Brian Breeze up a little higher. But nonetheless, 23rd overall to the Vikings at number 24. We are going to have, I'm not going to lie, I can't even see this. I'm going to have to click and zoom in. Deontay Banks. Okay, just the way the stream is set up on my end. Deontay Banks, number 24 overall, cornerback to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags are going to be a great team to watch next year. And picking up Deontay Banks out of Maryland, again, one of the best players in this draft, one of the best corners in this draft. It's going to look very nice. Bijan to the Bucs. Yeah, that one would hurt, wouldn't it, Darby? Right there with you, brother. Bijan to the Bucs would just make me cry because the Saints are, I'm pissed that they still got the 29th pick as low as it was. I feel like it definitely should have been higher. We could have negotiated for more. I wish we would move up in this draft. Who knows what I'm going to have the Saints doing in this draft because they need some guys on the defensive line, and Bijan coming in would just really, really make things rough for the Falcons. So Deontay Banks at number 24. On into the last few picks of this NFL draft. Jalen Hyatt will go to one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the NFL. We'll go to Daniel Jones, who just got a major payday. We'll go to a Brian Daboll, who did a lot with Daniel Jones. Jalen Hyatt, loved this guy out of Tennessee, showed off well with Hendon Hooker. They both played major parts into each other's collegiate career. Jalen Hyatt to really benefit Daniel Jones at number 25. Number 26, splash play, few splash plays, and a nice way for the draft to break out here in the last few picks. Michael Mayer, first tight end off the board. As much as Darnell Washington is my number one, as much as Dalton Kincaid is literally a wide receiver in a tight end's body. Michael Mayer at 26 to the Cowboys. They're looking for a nice play as well. They have Brandon Cooks. They have CeeDee Lamb. They have Michael Gallup. They do not have a running back as of yet. Tony Pollard is nice. So before y'all freak out and say they do have a running back, that's what I meant with Tony Pollard. If Bijan fell, I know some people will like Bijan at 26, but wasting or taking a first-round pick with a running back, considering what just happened with Zeke, Jerry Jones could have some of that silliness, I guess, in him. But either way, Michael Mayer at number 26. Number 27, the Bills have to take a wide receiver. Stephon Diggs is great. Gabe Davis is a solid receiver. I don't think he's what everyone thinks he is, and he is. Okay, Saints. Yeah, keeping him in the backyard. You already know, Darby, keeping him in the backyard. Quentin Johnston, number 27, though. Got to get Josh Allen some more help. I know that the Bills would maybe like to trade up and get a better receiver in this draft. Don't know how much they would actually deal for it. But Quentin Johnston to the Bills at number 24 overall. Bills, I'd like to see them maybe get Jalen Hyatt, or, for some reason a Jordan Addison did fall to them. I don't see that happening. There are some good receivers in this draft. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU, Bills 27. Osiris Torrance, because the Bengals need to still protect Joe Burrow. They did bring in some offensive line help last year, but I think they were still 10th or 11th most sacks taken in the NFL at that point. So Osiris Torrance, maybe taking a little high for some of you, but a solid offensive lineman out of Florida to the Bengals at 28th overall. BJ Ojulari is also going to stay in his backyard, just like Nolan Smith stayed in his backyard with the Falcons, from a Georgia boy to the Atlanta Falcons. BJ Ojulari from an LSU player to a New Orleans Saint. And this will be major. Again, maybe this is taken kind of higher for some of you, but I feel like with the Saints at 29, they either have to trade up more to go grab a true player of need, like maybe a Christian Gonzalez. Well, I don't know. The Saints don't need a corner because their pass defense surprisingly was good. If they make a jump for a Nolan Smith, it'd be crazy if for some reason Will Anderson happened. I'm not saying it's going to jump that high, because it would have to be really high jumps, of course, even for a Jalen Carter. But BJ Ojulari, they're not going to see Miles Murphy. They're not going to see Brian Breeze out. I'm just going to call him Brian Breeze because Drew Brees. Brian Breeze out of Clemson will not be here at 29, so BJ Ojulari. The Eagles at number 30 supplement perfectly. They do not take Bijan Robinson to make y'all freak out like happened in the last NFL draft. They will take the best safety in Brian Branch out of Alabama, the most complete safety in this NFL draft. They're not perfectly, but they're going to supplement for CJ Gardner-Johnson, not being an Eagle anymore. He goes on to be with the Detroit Lions. I think they take this position, supplement great. Brian Branch, solid overall safety, my number one safety in the NFL draft. And then at number 31, Josh Downs, wide receiver out of North Carolina to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know the Chiefs don't necessarily need a wide receiver one. They did lose Juju. I'm not going to say necessarily need a wide receiver one, because some people don't believe they do. Juju did just leave. Of course, Tyreek Hill left the year before. There are going to need be some targets that really need to be implemented with this Kansas City Chiefs team. At this point, with the Ravens now picking up OBJ, I don't see how DeAndre Hopkins does not go to either the Chiefs or the Bills. And I think if the Chiefs are really aggressive with it, maybe even trade this first overall pick, I would trade, maybe call me crazy, I would trade the number one overall pick at 31, given I just came off a Super Bowl winning season. I would give that number one overall pick potentially to the Arizona Cardinals, who are looking to offload him for, I think, maybe a fourth or a fifth, or they're maybe even looking to cut him. But he's got one of the biggest cap hits in the league in DeAndre Hopkins, and one of the biggest wide receiver price tags out there. Y'all let me know what you think about this NFL draft. I'll cycle back through it real quick. Some of the highlights: Bryce Young 1, CJ Stroud 2, Anthony Richardson 3, Will Anderson 5th, Hendon Hooker 7th, Nolan Smith 8th, Christian Gonzalez 10 to the Eagles. Really like that. Miles Murphy 15th to the Packers. I'm a big fan of that. Cardinals take the 16th pick when they trade back with the Commanders, go 16th overall with Lucas Van Ness. Joey Porter for the Steelers, very solid move. Bijan to the Bucs to spice up the NFC South. JSN at 20 to the Seahawks. 3 straight receivers: JSN, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison at 20, 21, and 22 to the Seahawks, Chargers, and Ravens, respectfully. And then we go on towards the end of the draft. Brian Branch, the best safety, to the Eagles. Josh Downs, wide receiver, to the Chiefs. Some people say the best tight end of the draft will now go to the Cowboys. Michael Mayer, 26. Jalen Hyatt, 25th, to the New York Giants. So that's going to conclude the NFL with AJL's Mock Draft 2.0.